Welcome, everyone, to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm your host, David Haas, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, very special guest who I think is going to provide a ton of value today. Her name's Natalie Morse, and she's a functional medicine practitioner. She has some amazing insight with regards to overall health, I think. And I think that's what, some realizations that I made in my life was that I was focusing health on just in the physical, and there's just so much more to it. But she kind of puts the science behind it. She's also a pharmacist. So she has that background. And I think we're going to kind of dig into overall health is what I really think we're going to talk about today. So Natalie, thanks for being on the podcast. I'm excited to have you here. It took me a while to get you here.
It took a long time for us to finally sit down in this studio.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm happy that it all worked out eventually, all in divine timing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it all comes to when the podcast is gaining more momentum, because I think what you have to tell people is important, because I was one of these people for the better part of my life that I thought that health was, completely at the physical level. And if I, even long before 15 years ago, if I had a problem, I was going to the doctor and being like, hey, fix my problem, give me a pill, do whatever it is, not thinking about how my emotions, how my mental state, the food I was putting in my body, how it was affecting, my overall level of health. So what do you think it is that people get stuck on when it comes to just overall functional health?
I think the number one thing that comes to me first, and it was, I believe, the first realization I had, is their belief. Their belief of the future of their health and what is possible for them. Oh,
wow. I love that. Yeah, that's not the answer I was thinking that you were going to have. But yeah, that is so true. So let's expand on that. So you think that a lot of people that come to you don't believe they can be healthy? Is that what it is? Or they don't see health as this whole picture, and they just don't have they've yet to discover what the full picture of health looks like?
I'll go back to one aha moment I had very early on in my pharmacy career. I had someone come in and she was getting a diabetic medication for the first time, and she was crying because she was on this medication now. And she asked, am I going to be on this for the rest of my life? And I said, no, you don't have to be. And even then, I was probably 1 or 2 years out of school.
Right.
But I knew saying that to her, she didn't believe it, and she had no help or resources to make that possible.
Yeah.
And in her mind and in the field of everything she's been told, it was like, okay, here's this medication you're going to be on for the rest of your life to control your diabetes.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's a great example. So you're now a functional medicine practitioner. Yeah. And what is that though? Because it's starting to become more of a mainstream field now. But what is the definition of that position?
The definition, the way I look at it, is getting under the roots of what is affecting you in your health, or mostly the health, right? So it's let's use the example of diabetes because you brought that up, right? So it's what really is underneath driving that for you? Right. And it's more than just blood sugar. It's more than just what you're putting in your mouth. It's your whole history, everything that went into making you as you are right now today.
Yeah.
And we can't disregard or brush over anything that's happened of why your body's not well right now.
Yeah. And I think that's a great definition, because the way I look at my coaching, I kind of have labeled myself like a functional coach, because it's not just about emotional or mental, or there's also the physical element as well, and there's also the spiritual element. So I think functional medicine is we're not just looking at the symptomology anymore, right? You have your blood sugars all messed up, take some insulin. We're going to try and treat the symptom. We're in functional medicine, you're trying to look at the whole picture, right? Everything from top to bottom. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes into, the biggest challenge I have right now with people is the biggest growth is shifting everything, right? So it's the chocolate. It's not the chocolate cake, but it's the chocolate cake at the family function, why you can't say no to it, right? So there's so much more that needs to happen than just, okay, eat the chocolate cake and have your insulin if you want to be well, because there's no wealth in that sense in just taking the insulin to keep your blood sugar under control.
Yeah, and I think this is I'm sure that I don't have a lot of baby boomers in my audience, but I think this is like in the baby boom, that age range is when they're very much, and I see this with my in-laws, is like they're very much, oh, I have a problem, let me take a pill to resolve it, right? It's like they're not looking at anything deeper than I go to the doctor and I get a pill to resolve my symptom. It's like, if you have high blood pressure, yeah, you can take a pill to try and regulate your blood pressure, but it's like, why do you have high blood pressure? And I think there's a shift happening in medicine though. They're more looking, I feel, I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. I barely ever go to the doctor, but do you feel like there's a shift in medicine happening that people are like, asking the question, what's beneath this? Like, I feel like there is that shift happening, but
there is the shift happening, but unfortunately, I think it's so slow.
Yeah.
It's so slow. And the stats show us that if there's research being done right now, like there's research being done that's going to revolutionize the way we do things and the way we look at things and how we treat things. It's going to take 17 years for that research to get into medical school.
Oh, wow. And
then it's going to be in medical school for 10, 15 years for there to be enough practitioners coming out who have been trained in that.
Yeah.
And then so that's like 25, 30 years down the road. And then in the meantime, there's new research. So the big thing is it's so slow for everything to change on a grand scale where you can see it where it's affecting more people.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, so if someone has a health issue, whatever it may be, what would you think is the best course of action for them? Because like, you and I have talked about with Andrew, and Andrew, who's like, I consider my mentor, is like having like a team, a healing team. And like, so what would you suggest someone that just gets, let's just keep using diabetes, because I happen to like that subject, because it's one of the diseases that can be corrected, type 2 can be corrected through, a bunch of different means other than insulin. Right. So someone has diabetes, they come to you as a functional medical practitioner. It's like, well, we know that you start with the belief, right? So, but like what course of action are they going to take?
Yeah, I definitely love, and I use that a lot, is the healing team.
Yeah.
Right? That you need a healing team, because sure, I can do many things for you, but I can't do everything for you. Yeah. And it's also what I am best at, right? Like I can do this other thing, but there's someone who does it better. So it's going to be better for you to go get advice or help from someone else, right? So it's in that moment, and having a mentor or coach or someone who can see things from a different picture and start to pick out those roots for you. And that's kind of like the first spot, right? It's like getting an honest assessment of like, what are those roots for you and what do you need? Right? Yeah.
And I think, for me, like, as like I had an addiction to sugar for I don't know, like we were working together and we had a group, like a spiritual, I don't know what it was. It was like a spiritual group that we got together and we talked about spiritual principles. We talked about our own issues. We got to the roots of our issues. We helped heal from those issues. And, we were in that group for, 3-4 years, and I was still talking about my addiction to sugar and how it was like this cycle and this pattern, and I couldn't overcome it. And the funny thing for me was I had done the spiritual, the emotional, the mental work on it. I understood why it existed. Like I understood the reason I was going to sugar was for comfort, for because I felt like I needed a caregiver in my life, because I felt like that was missing. So I did it. I did the work. But what I was missing was the actual physical side of things. And finally I went to another local healer, and Paula Favreau, who does BOSS treatment, which I can't remember what the actual name of BOSS treatment is. Biomechanical, I don't know. I'll screw it up. Anyways, this is what she does. And she basically is doing... is something what you do, which I want to talk about, is like she kind of like walked me through a metabolic reset. She didn't do all the tests and everything, but she basically said, this is what you need to do. And she said to me, she's like, you're becoming insulin intolerant, right? And she's like, insulin intolerant. So she said, you need to stop eating all sugar completely. Right. And I was like, what? Like, I always heard like moderation, like what kind of life can you live if you can't have a piece of cake? And she's like, one day, maybe there will be a place where you'll be able to have a piece of cake and not spiral, like, and just keep going back. But basically just the awareness that my body had become intolerant to insulin, and I was probably moving down a path of going to diabetes or whatever. I don't know, maybe not, but I was like, whoa, like this is the first time I've heard this information. Right. So having that team, you can do all the spiritual work and you can do the emotional work, but you also have to look at the physical level, right? It's like what's actually happening in the physical body. And it's like, well, you're eating 500 grams of sugar a day. It's like, it's just not going to work, right? So I think it painted the whole picture for me. And I think that's what you're helping people do, is like, just look at the thing as a whole, and then being able to direct them to people that are going to help them the most.
Yeah. And you were ready. You were ready to hear that. You were in the space that you could hear that and do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. So when I get on the phone with someone, I know if they're ready or not.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes they're not going to be ready for 2 years. Sometimes you're going to have someone in your world following you, contacting you, attending your workshops, your webinars, listening to your podcasts. It might be 2 to 3 years before they're actually ready. And that's the hardest part for me as like a coach and someone who's seen transformation in people, is to be like, oh, I want it so bad for you.
Yeah.
But if they're not ready, like you can just, it's not gonna switch, right? Because I know we've talked about sugar over and over and over, and you've tried and you've had success, and then it came back in, and for whatever else. But it wasn't until you were at that point where it's like you were in a place where you heard it from a different angle or a different lens. I was like, it clicked, and it was like, okay, that's it. It's
100%. Yeah. I mean, that you hit the nail on the head with that one. Like, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will come, or whatever that saying is. And, you know, I think that is, as like a coach, is one of the things that, you know, you struggle with, because like you can see what a person needs to do to change, but they have to get to that place. And there's not really, I think one of the things is I think this goes to like positionality and like opinions and these kinds of things, of like letting go of, you know, your desire to change somebody, right?
Yes.
You know, like, you know, you can see everything they're doing wrong. And I'm like, if you just did that, like I have a client actually, one of my star clients, I was just sitting with him the other day, and he was kind of unorganized, and like things were kind of spiraling. He's getting really busy with his company. And I said, if you literally just stop eating sugar, I'm like, your life is going to completely transform. Because that's what I literally experienced in the last 3 months. It's like, my mental clarity, my level of productivity is like, it's never been like it is. And it took me my whole life to come to this realization that it was just one little physical change, and all these things had to happen. But for him, I'm saying, if you just did this one thing, you're going to be so far ahead than I ever was, because you're going to do it now. But I just know he's just not ready to do it, right? So Hawkins has like this thing, is like, you know, if you want to change the world, the first thing you need to do is let go of your desire to change the world. Right. So I think that's kind of like one of the challenges that we face. So like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with like a client that, you know, you can see what they need to do? Like you can see they can have perfect health, but they're just not ready. Like what's the plan? Just keep loving them and supporting them?
Well, most people don't have the belief that perfect health is attainable to them.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. So right now, what I do for most people is I hop on a discovery call with them first to find out, okay, where they're at, what they need help with, and if I'm the right fit for them at this point in time. And during that call, my job as a coach, even more so than as a practitioner, but my job as a coach is to pull out of them and to help them see a little further down the road than they're able to see right now, right? Because they can see 2 steps ahead, you know, for like weight loss, right? So the program I do right now, it's basically a weight loss program, right? So there's like, okay, I need to lose like 15 pounds. And it's so amazing. It's not having done this for a long time, but it's so amazing how people sell themselves short of what is possible and what's attainable, right? And it's through that conversation where we can see something a little bit bigger, and they can get excited about that, then they can get into a place that they're willing to do the work and dig in a little bit better.
I love it all. So this, you know, you and I, like, we're both like intuitive people, and we're like, you came in today and I have you fill out this sheet, but I'm like, I don't know where this podcast is going to go, but it just came to me right now, and I knew it would. So it's like, let's use me. Like, you be my coach right here, right now. Okay. Cause I think this is what's going to provide the most value for people. Cause what I'm struggling with is what I think a lot of people are struggling with right now. It's like, I'm going to give you my history. You know that I've been like up and down weight, but recently, since I quit eating sugar, I dropped like 17 pounds, you know, like I'm feeling good.
You're looking amazing. Like, you can see on the videos I've seen the last one, I'm like, Dave's looking good.
Oh yeah. If you go back, you know, on my Instagram, you scroll back like a couple months, you'll see like the puffiness in my face, and like I was 17 pounds heavier, you know? So, I guess COVID was like what happened to me. And like, when COVID hit, I was like, I need to make sure my immunity is totally, when I was still in the state of fear of COVID, you know, and this is a whole nother topic, we're not going to go there, but when I was in this state, I'm like, I got to make sure that my immunity is functioning at the highest, because I want to make sure that no matter what is out there, it's not going to affect me in here, right? Because it's never about what's going on out there. It's always about what's going on in here, but that comes with actual physical health as well. So that realization, along with working with Paula, along with years of all the discoveries that I've made, I was like, okay, I need to cut sugar. So I was finally ready, and I did it. I cut it completely. I lost 17 pounds in a couple of months. My energy levels are up. My mental clarity is amazing. But now I've like plateaued. Like I'm stuck now. Like I'm like around like 200 pounds, and it's like I started running again now, and I'm exercising every morning. So I'm either running, but there's no gym, so I'm not really lifting a lot of weights or anything. So I'm running, 5K, 10K here and there, biking every other day. And like the more I exercise, the less weight I'm losing. Right. And I'm like, am I building muscle? I mean, I don't really feel like it. I would say my diet is still not great. Like, I'm not eating, I would say, a lot of processed foods, but still probably like a lot of pasta, bread. Yeah. Like that's where I kind of, so basically I need to lose 15 more pounds. Okay. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah. So what do I need to do?
So what's your mindset when you go for a run, when you go for a bike? What's your mindset when you lace up and head out the door?
I would like to say that like this is like my meditation time and peaceful time, but it's like I need to burn calories.
I was gonna say if you stop there, I was gonna say bullshit.
Yeah, I knew you would know that. So yeah, it's definitely like I need to go out and burn calories, right? Because I need to. Like the way I look at it is like I need to eat 2,000 calories a day to maintain where I'm at. Right. If I want to lose weight, I need to be 1,500 calories a day. If I run 5K, that's an extra 500 calories. So I can eat 2,000. I'm burning. That's where I'm at.
Okay, I love this, because where I thought we were going to go before we got into this podcast, whereas like the example of sugar, right, and health and where we want to go, it's simple. It can be as simple as, well, just don't eat sugar and get some sleep.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
No.
Right? So right there in the what's going through your mind and your thoughts when you head out, that's huge. And I see that because I work mostly with women. Okay. They're so hard on themselves. They're so hard on themselves, and they've been hard on themselves for so long. So when you're going out to exercise, when you're going out to run, right? One, you should have an assessment of like, is that the right exercise for you? If it's all cardio, do you need to be doing some more weights? Right. Sure, the gyms are closed. There's workarounds if you want to do that, right? So it's like, okay, what type of exercise, what type of cardio? Is it putting too much stress on the wrong body systems? And if you're going out as a punishment, and that's almost what it is for most people, when they're like, okay, I have to go for a run because this is what I need to do because I was bad.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you're doing this thing because you were bad, it's like yelling at a 3 or 4 year old. Yeah. What's going to happen? Your body's not going to respond. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Versus relaxing, going for a walk in the morning and looking at, okay, how can I make the biggest shift in my health? That's easy. That's simple. That gives my body grace and gives my body the space to heal.
You nailed it there, I think, for sure, because like that's exactly what I do. Like if I eat a lot, I'm going 10K, so it is a punishment in some ways. I mean, I do actually enjoy running, but I think subconsciously, even though I'm telling myself on a conscious level, and that's, I think, a good point too, is like, I a lot of times when I'm sitting across from a client, what they're saying to me at a conscious level, I'm like, yeah, that's great, but what are you really saying? Like, what's really happening at the subconscious level? And even though, so I'm a perfect example, I need to take my own advice. At a conscious level, I'm like, I enjoy running, like it's fun, and I'm meditating, and I'm in nature, and yeah, all those things are true, but really, I'm like, I need to burn calories or I'm gonna get fat. And
look how much of your mental capacity it's consuming every day. Like, every time you sit down to a bowl of pasta, you're calculating how many calories, how much do I need to burn, how much am I putting in? Like, it's consuming so much mental energy for you right now.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to relax, change my mindset when I go out for a morning walk or whatever, go for a run, but not think about the calories and just be like, how can I heal my body? I mean, when you said that to me, it's like, what's the best thing I can do for my health? And the way I look at it, and this is where my mind goes, is like, I need to eat cleaner, right? Like I need to I'm like very much like, if I'm not prepared, I'm like just going to whatever I can grab. Now, luckily, because I've gotten off sugar, I'm I'm not experiencing the highs and lows of like glycemic, spikes, So before it was like, if I didn't eat by noon, I was like, I would eat anything. Like, so I would go to the convenience store and get 20 chocolate bars, and not 20, but 4 maybe, So, but now I've kind of experienced some plateau, but where I do still find is that if I get really hungry, I'm going to worse food. So what Paula had suggested to me was like, make sure you're eating 3 meals a day, right? So that way you don't have this like ravaging like hunger. But when I was eating 3 meals a day, I was finding that I wasn't experiencing the weight loss as much. So then I started playing around with like intermittent fasting, and I was eating like 1 meal a day, which I was having great success with, but I was slipping back into that, like ravaging, like, oh, I need to eat so much food, I'm so hungry. So is there a best case scenario or like that I should be doing like meal wise?
So how impatient are you?
Yeah, I've been working on the patience, but recently, that's actually funny that you asked that question, because recently I was just thinking about like preparing food, and like I'm like so impatient. Like I'm like, I just want to get the food and get it done. But like when I think about it, if I drove to Taco Bell, let's say, to get food, it's like by the time I drive to Taco Bell, I'd make my order. It's like I could have made a 30-minute meal at home, right? But it's just like, I don't know what's going on there. There's a block to like.
So it's not, but what I want to get to with the root of the impatience is, it sounds like okay, I tried this. How long did you let it go?
Yeah.
Like, how long did you actually try? Like, did you try it for 3 days? Did you try it for a week?
True. Yeah, no, I didn't try very long.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is people like, oh, I made this change, and myself included, is like, I made this change and I don't see results in 3 days. So forget it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So when you're developing your plan, so when you're developing your workout plan, your exercise plan, it's just like everything else. When you develop your plan, write it out, and what brings you joy? So what can you do for your physical body, moving your physical body? Because exercise and movement is critical. Yes. We all need to be doing that. But how can you put that in your week where you get excited about it? Yeah. Where you're joyful about it? Yeah.
And I need to put that in with food too, because I'm like, I don't know, I've always had a very weird relationship with food. It's like I look at food as fuel. Like I just want to eat, like get it out of the way. But then at the same time, like I want like delicious food. Like, so I'm like not a foodie, but I am a foodie. It's a very weird situation. But I think what you're saying though is that, for me, knowing that my like I get hypoglycemic or whatever is happening, I need to stay consistent. And like I just didn't give it long enough. It's like, oh, I wasn't losing weight like right away. So I was like, oh, now I'm going to go to intermittent fasting. And then that's when I started getting those spikes and eating like crazy again, right? So is that an accurate assessment?
Well, and that's where it's like having a coach or mentor or someone on your healing team to be like, yeah, intermittent fasting, I use that for a lot of people. It's like a great strategy for a lot of people. Yeah. But in that, then there's still tweaks for every body. Yeah. Right. So you can't just say, oh, intermittent fasting, right? Like that, like, well, you did it eating 1 meal a day. Yeah. Right. For most people, for most women, I have them, again, blood sugar balance is like usually a big issue for the people coming to work with me. So we have to be a little more gradual with it. So I have them don't eat breakfast, and then they eat like lunch and dinner. Yeah. And that's it. But even within that, not everyone can just jump into that. And if you're feeling like crap and you're going into it, and it's like, oh, it's time to eat, but I'm ravenous. Yeah. Okay, maybe we need to adjust that a little bit. So again, it's having that outsider's perspective guiding you through to have a plan for you. Yeah. Right?
And see how critical that is like you just like pinpointed some things to me that I was like, I was not even aware of exactly what was happening. And it's like, and like one of the things I always say is like, it's so hard to read the label from inside of the jar. It's like when you're in it, you just can't understand like what's actually happening. And that's why like a coach is so valuable, because they can just look from the outside and be like, well, what's happening with this? It's like, what are you thinking about when you go outside for that run? Like it's just so critical. So yeah. So I think the takeaway I took from this is that if you're like looking to lose an extra 15 pounds, probably like the best thing to do is to get like a coach,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because things will change along the way. And again, it's like when it's in the field of other people who have done it, yes, so that it gives you faith in the process. Right. Right. So you have faith in the process. And when the impatience sets in and you're not seeing that result right away that you want, when you can have the coach be like, no, you're on the right track. No, just keep going. Trust me, around that corner, you're going to see something that you're really excited about.
Right.
Or maybe we need to make a small course correction, right? It might be something super simple like, oh, you need to take some B12.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that was the magic switch, right? So you need that outsiders with like, what's that thing you're doing 98% right.
Yeah.
But you want that 1% better. That's why that's why it's so frustrating for so many people, because that first, whether it's 10 pounds, 17 pounds, a lot of times that comes off like really easy.
Yes.
Because that's the low hanging fruit. That's the dead weight.
Yeah.
It's as you get closer to like optimal, every little fraction is harder to attain. And you just need to, those tweaks can be a little bit harder to find that right tweak that was missing for you.
Yeah. And what do you know about like there's one of these like kind of belief systems that I have that like my body has a weight it wants to be at, like that's what I basically think. And like right now I feel like this is where my body wants to stay. Like when I try and go lower, it's like this seems like there's like just a bunch of resistance to it. Is that true? Or
absolutely.
Yeah.
If it feels safe right now, it's like, okay. And based on all the inputs it's getting, it's like, all right. And there's like a next plateau, right? So it's like, okay, you got to like base camp of Everest, right? Like you're like, okay, there, right? And for most people, like that's a win.
Yes.
Like that's a huge accomplishment to get there. So it's like, okay, I can like chill here, or do I want to take the next summit?
No, I want to go to the summit.
So that's like the next step and the next evolution. And so that's where it gets us back to belief.
Okay.
And it, what really, for me, like I had to do a metabolic reset myself to go through it, to see what thoughts came up, to see what limitations came up.
Well, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
What is a metabolic reset? Like this is where like I've been hearing all about this metabolic reset, and Paula kind of gave me a little bit of, but she didn't put me through the whole program. So what is a metabolic reset?
So the metabolic reset is a program I use to help people lose weight. So we're changing the food they're eating. They're getting some hormonal support, some gut support. And of course, with my program, they're getting mindset, gratitude, all kinds of things with it, right? We're focusing on sleep and stress, the whole package, right?
Gotcha.
That's why we have the results. So when I went through it, I can just speak from the thoughts that went through my head, right? So that's why as a coach, it's like, okay, who went through it? Who's done something that I want to do, right? So, when I was doing the program, when it was like, okay, weight started to fall off, and I came up to like numbers. So for women anyways, like there's a number, right? So there was like, as I approached the number I was before I got pregnant with my second kid, it's like, well, who am I to like get to the weight I was before I had kids?
Right. Yeah.
Because we've been told as a woman, you're going to gain a pound every year. That's normal. You're just going to gain a pound. Your metabolism's slowing down. Your hormones are slowing down. It's like, it's not normal to be that weight you were before you had kids.
Yes.
And then you reach like you go beyond that the next couple pounds, and then you're like, oh, well now if I go these 2 more pounds, then I'm the weight I was when I got married. And I was like, well, who the hell are you to be the same weight you were when you were 24 years old?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, like that just doesn't happen. So like every time, like, so there's plateau numbers. And when I'm following clients on their numbers, like let's say they're in the 160s, right? And they're like taking off like at a consistent rate. Mm-hmm. And as they get to like 162, 161, they'll stall. And at that point, it's all mental. It's all mental, right? Because they don't believe they can be in the 150s because they haven't seen that in 10 years, 20 years. Right. So they don't believe they can get there.
I gotcha.
And that's where it's like, they need the check-in from the coach to be like, keep going. And so because they get frustrated, right? And at that point they're like, okay, I stopped losing weight. I'm just going to quit. Maybe this is it. This is as good as it can get.
Yeah.
So when the coach is like, no, other people have gone through that barrier too. This is what's going on. Whatever it is that they need to hear for their situation to blow through that barrier. Then they're like, oh my God. Yeah. And then the next 5 pounds just falls off because they already blew that barrier.
Right. Yeah. And then I think a really cool tool for weight loss is to just, once you get to where you want, is just set a number and say, you never allow yourself to go over that. Like, that's like what I use with like getting below 200 pounds. Like once I'm below 200, I'm like, I'm never going over 200 again. So it's like, if I step on the scale one day and I'm 201, it's like, oh, I got to really like step it up. I don't know what you think about that strategy, but, it's just like I don't know, it's just like a marker for me. Now I'm just never going back there. Right. So I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure that I don't go above and beyond going to the 217s or wherever I was before. Right.
And it's great to have the standards. Most people don't have that standard for themselves. Right. So I've seen that again with myself, and we've seen it with our friends and family and population in general right now. So in January, I was like at a really good spot. I was like, I'm at a spot I'm good with, I'm comfortable with, and I know I can maintain this forever. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
And then COVID happened, and it's like, okay, what are the new struggles? Why am I stress eating again? What's going on that I'm unsettled, that, I'm not sleeping as well, or I've stopped my regular exercise routine, and why am I stress eating when I thought I was beyond this, and I've conquered this before, right? So it's the new realizations, right? So, but I had that number, I still had that kind of number where, so for me, it was like 8 pounds, right? So once I got to 8 pounds, like, okay, that's it, done. Like going back where most people, I just saw it a couple of weeks ago, the average is 16 pounds.
Wow.
So it's what standards you hold for yourself. Yeah. Right. So for me, it was like, everyone's like, oh, the COVID 10, COVID 15. I was like, no, once it was 8, because I'm like, I know the work I did to put in it, no more. Yeah. Gloves are off. Other people are like 16, 20 pounds because they didn't have that standard for themselves. Right. And it's okay to have that standard. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's important, I think it's because it's about awareness. It's about awareness about, like even stepping on a scale, I think it's just about awareness. It's like, there's days I don't want to step on the scale. I'm like, I don't know if I should, because I don't want to see that number, right? But I think you brought up a good point with regards to COVID and my wife calls it the COVID-19 because like everyone put on the 19 pounds. But I think what's really important that you pinpointed there was that eating is so much more about like a comfort. Like food has become a comfort, and it's part of like I think our society as a whole. Like we gather around the table. Like Christmas is Thanksgiving is all about the food, and so those feelings that you have that are around food are like happy feelings. Of like being around family and friends and nice times. And then also when you're full, you feel like content and comfortable. But usually when you relapse or whatever, and I actually just had this experience as I was like releasing this online program, and like the ads weren't performing well, and now let's say I'm 3 months in, I don't know exactly what time, 3 months into no sugar, like just feeling great. All of a sudden those ads start not working, and I'm like, what the fuck? Start questioning, self-doubt comes in, like these are this is my coat that I put on, and then the cravings like spiked, right? And luckily, because I have the awareness and because of the work that you and I have done together, I was able to be like, whoa, what the hell's going on here, right? And I was like, oh, self-doubt's coming up and all this stuff. So it had nothing to do with actually craving the food. It was just like I wanted to go back to that comfort zone, right? And I think that's a lot for so many people.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you've been sugar-free for 3 months, there's no physiological reason why your body is craving sugar. Like you're well-fed, you're well-nourished. It's 100%. Yeah. Filling a void, emotional, falling back to that code or falling back to that comfort zone, that thing that gave us comfort. Yeah. Because in this moment, I really need something to make me feel better.
That's it. Yeah, 100%. So let me ask you this one more question about food, and then we're going to transition. Sure. So if I want to lose 15 more pounds, do I need to be hungry all the time?
God, no.
Not hungry all the time, but do I need to have that little bit of hunger?
No.
No.
Like okay. You eat when you're hungry at appropriate times. Yeah. And the biggest thing for the women going through my Metabolic Reset program, most women, they've been dieting for years and years. They've tried everything under the sun. So they're actually undernourished. They're not eating enough. Most of these people, they're not eating enough of the right food. So when I'm like, hey, this is your lunch and this is your dinner, they're like, oh my God, that's so much food. Like I can't hardly finish it. I'm like, yeah, this is what you need to be eating.
Yeah, because it's real food.
It's real food.
It's like God's food.
Oh, I'm not used to eating like a salad and broccoli and fruit and everything at the same time. So it's like the volume of food is like, wow. So sure, they're hungry once mealtime because that's appropriate. Okay. But they have a real food meal that is going to sustain them for 4 hours. Yeah. And I think you just pinpointed something for me too, is because I am like using like bread and carbs as like my thing to fill me up. But like I have experienced this firsthand, is that
when I'm like insanely hungry, if I eat an apple, like I'm content for like probably, an hour, right? It's like one little tiny apple, but for some reason along the way, it's like once I felt hunger, I felt like I needed to be fully full and satisfied. But like even just one little apple will satisfy me for an extended period of time. But if you ate a salad and an apple and some broccoli, it's like then you're going to be satisfied the way, a bowl of pasta is going to make you satisfied, I guess.
Yeah, you got to get off those carbs, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing a lot of carbs.
Yeah, I mean,
and carbs are good. There's no good carbs, there's no bad carbs, but yeah.
It is true though, because I do have this like, because I'm veg and I have this like carb mentality, is like that carbs are like my fuel, like that's where my energy comes from. You need carbs. And one of the not dietitian, she was called Freely the Banana Girl, which is like this girl I used to follow on Instagram. She had this diet that was called Raw to 4, right? So she ate only raw foods until 4 o'clock. And then at dinner time, she would allow herself to eat like, whatever, carbs, potatoes, pastas, that kind of stuff. And it was like really working for her. And I was like, oh, this makes sense to me. Like, carbs are your energy. You need carbs for energy. So I'm actually kind of against like the low carb diets, but I think there is probably like there's a difference between the type of carbs that I'm eating and the type of carbs that she's talking about. Like her carbs are like potatoes, right? And my carbs are like white pasta.
Well, and that's balancing it out. It's just like everything else. Balancing, right? Is the focus of your meal like this huge plate of pasta? Like what else is in it? Like do I have enough? Like there's nothing wrong with pasta. There's nothing wrong with a slice of bread. But what else is with it? Especially if you're doing your energy outputs like I know you are.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's make a shift here because I think we kind of already were leaning towards it, but you and I have both like kind of gone on a spiritual journey, I guess, if you want to call that.
We can call it that. I think.
Yeah, and I think we've just been able to come to a level of awareness about the whole picture, body, emotional body, mental body, spiritual body, and it's like we are able to see it from like this whole view, and it's kind of hard to like I guess put into words, but like what do you think were the biggest leaps that you made like spiritually since you kind of being connected with Andrew and everything that we've kind of all done we've done together?
Whew.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
The biggest leaps. Well, the biggest huge leap was like the day I would say I had my spiritual awakening.
Okay.
That was huge, right? So at that point, it's like literally everything shifts in that moment, and when you have that moment, it's like okay, like it's hard to even still to this day like describe it, and explain it. But once you have that, it all changes, and then it's the I don't know if persistence is the right word, but it's the continuing of it to keep it front in mind, right? To do what you need to do on a daily basis or weekly basis, whatever it is, to stay connected so you don't lose it. Yeah,
because it's easy to fall back.
Right.
Like, life gets in the way or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden your meditation goes out the window, you're not continuing the education or whatever it may be. It is like kind of like a lifelong journey, I think, for me, I have a goal of enlightenment. Like I want to keep moving, and I think just having that goal, I think is what's going to draw me towards it, but I don't know if I'll ever get there, but it's just like the process is amazing. And I think you've probably experienced the same thing. Is like, there's one little tiny shift is like so profound. It's like so powerful, like just like one little awareness or whatever it may be can completely transform your life. Like, so like when you said, when I had my spiritual awakening, like what was that for you? What was that moment? Like what was revealed to you? Like, can you put it into words?
So the spiritual awakening, it was like basically a process throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it, I had a treatment from you and Andrew. And then shortly after that, I wanted other people, because I'd been in Andrew's world. I'd been following him for a while. Right. So, the same teacher that we have. And I wanted other people. When I went to the first treatment, we'll back up. When I went to that first treatment, it was because I anticipated I would be referring people to Andrew for treatments.
Right.
But as a practitioner, when I refer somebody out, like I need to experience it first, so when I can say why or making sure this is going to be right. So I'm like, well, I need to have a treatment first. Just like going to a chiropractor.
Yeah.
You're going to go first and then refer people. So I went first, and that was like, blew the lid off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I arranged with Andrew. He offered to train me.
Right.
And offered to do a training day. I'm like, okay. I arranged a training day. So what that looked like is I arranged like 6 or 8 people to come for Andrew to do sessions on, and I would be part of the process. And I did that for the other people because I had other people in my life who I wanted to have a treatment. I wasn't doing it for myself at any point. So again, that's like, what are you doing to give? So I went into it with that. And throughout that process of being part of those treatments, like, you know, that was the day where it was like, no questions asked. Like, there's a God, like, there's like the things I saw and experienced that day was like, again, it's still hard to describe, but once you have that, it's like, no one can tell me there's not a God.
No. And I think the thing too, and maybe if God scares people off because, you know, there's so much, there's so much, I don't know, whatever around God, the word God, but it's just like the interconnectedness. Like, you know, you and I have experienced this time and time again. It's like you get someone on that table and you put your hands on them, and all of a sudden 2 minutes in, you're telling them about their deepest, darkest secrets or whatever it means or whatever they're holding on to, and emotions are being released, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, how is this possible? And it's just like, the only explanation is that we're all interconnected. You know, there's energy that flows between all of us, and that energy to me is like the energy of God. And it's like, wow, like this is what is available. So once you realize that it's available to help other people, you also realize it's available to help you, right? So I've learned how to just go within and do like self-healing. You know, it's like I've experienced the release of like actual physical symptoms. I gave this explanation with the podcast with Andrew, is that like my neck and my shoulders were killing me, and I'm like, I gotta go to the chiropractor, I gotta do this. But it wasn't the chiropractor or massage that I needed. It was that I was like trying to move forward too quickly, and I was like literally crunching forward, like leaning my head forward, which was causing this stress. And as soon as I created that awareness in the meditation, all of that shoulder pain like melted away. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, no matter, I don't know how many times you got to see it, but I'm still dumbfounded every time I see it. Right. And it's like, if you're skeptical about it, and you know, it's just like, just go and experience it. It's like, you can't be skeptical anymore. And like, some people will dismiss it. I probably dismissed it I guess for the first like 100 times I experienced it. I was just like, no, is this really happening? You know, like, but you forget, you know, it's like, you got to stay in the field, and you got to keep going and keep seeing it over. Then it just becomes normal, right? Then there is no needing to prove it works. It's just like, it happens time and time again for me with my clients. And a lot of my clients are like, people that want to like achieve like greater levels of wealth and stuff. So then I say, hey, get back on this table here. They're like, what the hell are you doing? But they can't deny that power either. They're not even, let's say, spiritual people. They're like, you know, they're starting to create more awareness because they're working with me. That's why they were drawn to me. But once they get on that table, they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Right. Yeah. So, I think with regards, like, what do you think there, I like to say, like, there's like probably like top 5 things that really shifted me. One of them being just the realization that you can connect to like infinite intelligence to get any of the answers. So let's talk about that actually. So, you know, I see you talking a lot about manifesting, right? What is manifesting to you? Because I think a lot of people are confused about that.
Ooh, manifesting. For me, manifesting is getting clear on what you want, and it has to come from a pure source. Like, it has to come from a source of wanting something for the highest good. It's not being selfish.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And for me, manifesting is about fulfilling my potential on this planet.
Yeah.
Right. So if I have this thought in my head, if I have this burning desire to do something or to achieve something or to create something, I know most of the time that's not coming from me. Mm-hmm. That's coming from an outside source. So it's my job and it's my duty to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So most of my stuff is about how am I going to connect with these women who need my help?
Yeah.
Right. So how am I going to manifest that? Right. Whether it's a program, whether it's a course, the help I need along the way. Mm-hmm. It's about fulfilling myself. And, you know, again, a lot of my passion and driving of like what I'm doing is, you know, for my children, right? To be a better mother for my children, to give them the things that they need in this life as well. So that's where, for me, it's kind of hard to say like manifesting, but it's like, yeah, it's like, it's being okay with what you want.
Yeah.
Like you have to get to a place where it's okay to say, I want a safe place to live. I want my own house. I want a fulfilling relationship. I want an amazing career. It's okay to want that if it's coming from a place of service and not of like greed.
Yeah. And I think one of the questions I put in like the intake form is like, how can I help you? And you wrote to tap into abundance, like tap into abundance more. And I think the one piece of advice that I would offer you is what I've come to the realization about manifesting. What I think a lot of people are missing is that manifesting is about actually feeling the way you would feel once you achieve that goal. It's not so much about like putting a poster on your wall or even wanting. It's about getting clear, what you said. It's about getting clear on the goal and then really starting to feel like that's happening already. So that's what I experienced firsthand. Although I didn't call it manifesting, it just happened to me. And now I can look back and I'm like, holy shit, I manifested this right into my life. And it was because I wanted money. That was my thing. You know this. So I wanted money. And what I didn't make the association with then, but now I did. The reason I wanted money because I was going to be happy. So what I was doing was I wasn't going to allow myself to be happy until I made the money. Right now, this is all in hindsight. I wasn't making this realization as it happened. So, but what happened was working with Andrew and coming to these spiritual realizations, I started healing from my past, healing from the past traumas. And slowly I came to these realizations. I was blocking joy. I wasn't allowing myself to be happy. So I just started letting it come in, right? And once that joy started flowing in, and I used that through the practice of integrity and the practice of gratitude, and I just started being happy again. I started laughing again. I just started enjoying life again. What happened was I was already feeling the way I wanted to feel by achieving money, right? So once I felt like the way I wanted to feel, the money just started flowing in, right? So it's like, I think that's what manifesting is all about. It's like, how does making more money, how is it going to make you feel, right? And if it's like safe, secure, whatever, it's like, well, that's an indication that you're not feeling that way right now. And you got to keep looking within to be like, where is this happening? Like, why do I still feel like I don't have enough? Or why do I feel like I need more? Or whatever it is, getting to the root of that will create whatever it is you want to create in your life, because you'll already feel the way you're going to feel by achieving a certain goal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents for you.
Yeah. Well, and I've had, because obviously it's like, this is like a top of mind thing, right? So it's like, I've had like a lot of aha moments and insights over the last little while, even the last couple of weeks. And for like the vision of like my business, say, right? It's like, oh yes, I know absolutely what I'm doing is worth this much money, and the business I'm putting together, I can definitely do this. It's the other piece. It's the money, the family field, and it's the stories we've been grown up with. Yeah. That is my block right now that I'm working to overcome. Right. Yeah. So like, who am I to have somebody clean my house? Who am I to like get meal kits delivered? Right. Because my vision of my future is I need those other things in place where it's like, well, if you're a mom, you should just be doing the laundry and doing the dishes. Right. I'm like, no, but that doesn't bring me joy. Mm-hmm. And I would rather spend an hour talking to somebody. Yeah. Right. Doing that versus doing this other thing that somebody else can do. Mm-hmm. Right. So part of that bigger vision picture, I know I need to have all those things into place, and it's me giving myself permission to go there. Yeah. And understanding that what those stories are that you've been told about money, right? Like that there's never enough of it. Like that's the way I grew up. There's never enough money, right? It's like everything that I needed hockey equipment, I needed new skates. My dad would huff and puff and these huge sighs every time he pulled his wallet out. And it was just like his money going out didn't go out from a place of gratitude, and money coming in didn't come in from a place of gratitude, right? It's like, I'm trying to get to this place where like every dollar I put out, I'm like, thank you. And every dollar that comes in, I say thank you, right? Because it's like, I'm just in this place of gratitude. Like money can get me the things that I want, right? But also when the money comes in, I'm happy and grateful that people are putting their faith in me to help them, right? So I think I lost a thought that I had that was going to be really good for you, and I don't know what it was. Oh, yes. All successful people do one thing, and I think you touched upon it, that regular people that never achieve the next level of success is, and that is they don't want to do anything that they can pay somebody else to do. Right. So it's like, if you
are cutting your grass and it takes you an hour and your time is worth $200 an hour, but you could pay somebody $20 to cut your grass, it's like you're missing out on the opportunity cost that you could be making more money. So it's just like, I look everywhere in my life and where I can delegate, where I can automate, and that just gives me more time to stay focused on what it is that I want to do. But there is, though, that you're right, like that. Like my dad was the kind of guy that wouldn't pay anybody to do anything, right? Because he's like, why would I pay someone to do it when I can do it myself? So if you're sitting here listening to this podcast and you have that mindset, that's a critical point where you have it all backwards, right? It's like, even if you're not fully ready to launch your business and take it to the next level, like even if you're not 100% fully there, you still have to have that mindset, because even if let's say you're not going to launch your business for a year, right? And you're like, well, I can't pay someone to cut my grass now because my business is a year away from launch. Well, if you start paying someone to cut your grass, that's an hour a week that you're going to be spending on that business, which means that business might launch in 8 months instead of a year. How much money, if you're making $100 an hour for 40 hours a week, did you end up losing out on over the course of those 4 months, right? It's like, it's a lot of money. Right. So I think just making that shift and understanding why that belief system is still in place and getting to the roots of it, healing from that trauma of we don't have enough money, money's scarce is huge. Like, and I don't think a lot of women don't have that though. Like they have that money scarce, but they don't have that, they want to give. Right? Like I was the person that held on to my money so tight. Like every dollar I had, I was like, I'm not giving anything to anybody. I was like, I need every cent. Right? So one of the ways I changed my money mindset was like, I started giving my money away. Right? Like I started giving away to people to cut my grass, to cook my food, but I also started like literally giving it away to like charities, to employees, to customers, like by offering better deals and these kinds of things. And that just completely changed everything for me. Not only did I start receiving in abundance, it's like every dollar you put out in a giving manner, you get back 10 times. It's literally like a law. Like I've experienced it over and over again. So I just started giving, and then I was like, whoa, this is powerful. So then I just started implementing that into every aspect of my life. And I think that was the big thing that shifted for me. But I don't know if that's it for like women as much though. Do you feel like that you like hold on to money tightly?
No, I don't. Yeah. No, I 100% know that everything I ever need will come to me. Yeah. And because I've had just way too many experiences of like, whether it's money or whatever, just coming at the right time where, oh, well, I didn't need it last week, but now usually it's like it comes into my life because now it has a place to go. Yeah, right. So I see that flow. I view money as energy. Yes. Someone told me it's money is currency. It's currency. Yeah. It's currency. Yeah, so money is energy. So it's like keep it flowing, right? So I've always, everything is about keeping it flowing, not hoarding it, keeping it flowing. Yeah. A big thing for me is again that group aspect. So from from a woman's business perspective, it's not normal for us to like. I absolutely know like okay, if my time is valued at $200 an hour, anything I'm doing that I can pay someone under $200 an hour, I absolutely should be doing that. Yes. But it's not normal. Yeah. It's not normal. So it's the biggest thing for me I was definitely since last October is the business group I work with where it's the woman who runs it. It's a woman who runs it in her business, and it's mostly women going through that program. Right. So it's normalizing it, right? So that hanging out with the 4 to 5 people that you want to be like, right? Yes. And like, well, who else in my inner circle is living their life like that, right? I know it's possible for me. 100%. I know I want it. I know I deserve it. And I know I can leave a bigger impact on this planet if I'm doing that. Yes. But it's not normal. Yeah. And everyone else is like, what? Like, why would you do that? But until you surround yourself with the other people who have that same mindset, who have that same integrity behind it of why we're doing this, it's like, okay. And it still takes time, right? Yeah. Like it's still like been working on it a long time to make it like to actually be able to step into that and be like okay with that and living with it on a regular basis. Yeah. And I think too, like probably is that belief that it's not normal. It's like, what are the behaviors or the resistances that you experience when you're like getting ready to move forward? You're like, okay, I'm ready to launch my online program. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get distracted by like, I got to do this with the kids, or I got to make this meal, or like, what are those distractions that distract you from moving out of that normalness? For me, like the distractions are taking on too many projects. It's like I'll
I'll be like, okay, I know I got to release my online course, and but then all of a sudden I'll be getting close to releasing it, and the self-doubt and all that will start coming in. And for you, it's the normalcy, like it's not normal, like that belief system. And then I'll be like, oh, maybe I should start this company, or maybe I should start this program. And I'm like, I'm right at the finish line. I just don't push past, right? So.
Yeah.
Do you have those examples as well?
Oh my God. Yeah. There's like so many, like I have so many ideas of like, oh, I could do this. I could do this project. I could do this webinar. I could do this class. I could do this offering. Right. And it's like having, again, the patience of knowing like, no, just stick with this. Like you're right there.
Yes.
You're right at the edge of it. Like just stick with it. Like one more month. Like sure, you could do this other thing in the meantime, but then you're pulling, again, whether it's 4 hours of energy, 10 hours of energy, that you need over here. That's just like you're right at the top. Yeah, and that's what happens. I see that with my clients so much is that they get right to the edge, you know. And there's this little meme out there of like this guy digging for gold, and it's like so he's like 2 feet from the actual gold, and he's just like, fuck, this is too hard, and he gives up, right? And it's like you just got to push past that 2 feet, but usually at those 2 feet is when you're going to feel the most amount of resistance, because as you're about, I guess for me, it's like as you're about to release a program, or you're about to, like, it's like you start to worry about the judgment or the fear of failing, or all that comes in the closer you get to actually launching whatever it is you're about to launch. So yeah, I guess just tuning into those resistances, being aware of them, you know, and being aware of them so that you can transcend them is ultimately the key. And patience. And patience, yes, 100%. But I'm working on patience. It's happening. It's slow, but it's, you know, I find that one thing I came to the observation about patience is that most people that have really big goals are very impatient. You know, like someone that's just been like, you know what, I'm going to become an electrician. I'm just going to be an electrician, work for a company. And like, they're like, okay, they get to where they want to be. And like, they're more patient people, I feel like people that are like, I want to do a lot, they're impatient. And it's crazy because their impatience is actually what prevents them from achieving what it is they want to achieve, because they're so impatient that they just want that big leap quickly. And they don't want to do the small little work because like, they're like, this is not getting me to where I want to go. Well, there's a thrill behind it too, right? Because it's like, if you see it in your mind, you're like, oh, this could be so good. And, you know, but then after 3 months, you're like, okay, I'm not right where I'm at, right? Because it's like, you're not getting that feedback or that thrill. Yes. Because again, it's putting yourself in that space, right? So if you've put yourself into that energy space of how amazing it's going to be and the impact you're going to be having and whatever that is down the road, and it's not here yet, it's like, oh, that's defeating. Yes. Right. A big thing. I was at an event last September, and it was like a mastermind meeting, and there was a gentleman there, and he had this like new food company. It was like really amazing. And so I was listening to him, and he was like, yeah, it took me like 3 years to like get from concept to launch to like actual have product that he's selling now and everything. And I was just like, oh, here I am, like mad at myself that I don't have this level of success in 3 months. And I'm like, oh yeah, 3 years. These things take time. Yes. I think that is like the most amazing message. It's like, this stuff takes time. It's like, I have a client recently that is like having all these struggles with the business and because of COVID and trying to reopen, and you know, she's 2 years in, and I'm like, I didn't get to this place of like chilling and like delegating all for 15 years in my business, you know? So it's like, it takes time. Yeah. So that's probably the message that I needed to hear out of this podcast. So let's wrap it up there, but I'll give you a minute here just to tell people about like what it is you do, how they can find you, like just basically give yourself a little pitch here. Hey, so I'm a functional medicine practitioner. So again, I look underneath the hood, look at the roots of like what's going on with your health struggles, because it's never just one thing, and you're probably floored of what's actually contributing to what's going on and where you can have the biggest shifts. Right. Sometimes it's the littlest thing that gives you a really good shift. So I work with that. I work with a lot of women with autoimmune conditions and a lot of chronic digestive issuds. That's a whole nother podcast of everything that goes into that and the why. So that's predominantly the women I work with for the functional medicine. And then I also have a program that's called Metabolic Reset, which is a holistic weight loss program.
Nice.
Which is great. So the best places to find me are on Facebook. So Natalie Morse. And will you put like an email in the show notes, Dave? Or
I'll attach a link to your email there.
Email there in the show notes. And I'm not a big Instagram person, but I do have an Instagram account. Okay, so Natalie Morse CFMP is my Instagram account. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend if you're battling with weight loss, because I think weight loss was this thing for me that was always on my mind, and it wasn't until I put the whole picture together, and I think that's exactly what you can do for people, just by listening to you talk. And I'm like, I know you're going to be able to pinpoint what is critical. And even the advice that you gave me here on the podcast, I think already created a critical change for me. So if you're interested, make sure you check out Natalie. I'll definitely put a link on the YouTube and on my website to Natalie's info, so you can contact her. So thank you for being here. It was awesome. We're definitely going to do this again and go deeper down the rabbit hole. So thanks for taking time to listen to the podcast. Don't forget, if you haven't already, just make sure you click that subscribe. And I'm here every Wednesday releasing a podcast, so make sure you tune in.